Hello Woodbury High School juniors. This is Mrs. Plant, your building principal, and I'm here to talk to you today about your scholarship opportunities. Whether you're applying for scholarships that are local or scholarships through the colleges or universities to which you are applying, there are some guidelines that you can follow to make your applications stand out amongst the many applications that these groups will be receiving. Remember that this is your opportunity to sell yourself, so it's not a time to be humble. List all of the sports, activities, leadership roles that you've had, and even if you are thinking, well, that's insignificant, I shouldn't leave it, I shouldn't put it in my application, put it in your application. You never know who will be reading it and what might stand out to that individual. Of course, remember that your GPA, the coursework that you take, is going to be scrutinized. When you're given an opportunity to give a scholarship to between several students, you look to see that there is rigorous coursework that has been taken and that there's been success in those classes. Also, remember that many colleges and universities are looking for service experiences that you might have had, whether that's through a local church or through the school. Service to the community is valued, and it will make your application rise to the top of the pile. So as you start making applications for scholarships, remember those pointers. Remember to sell yourself in those applications and make sure that you list all of the activities that you have been involved in during your high school life.
I'm Winnie Williams. I am the parent of a junior and a freshman at Woodbury High School. I'm also a small business owner in Woodbury, and as a part of being that small business owner, I'm a part of the Woodbury Chamber of Commerce, and I'm a part of their scholarship committee that evaluates the scholarship applications in the spring from our high school seniors to award some number of scholarships based on how much money we have. So in that role, I've had an opportunity to look at a lot of scholarship applications and a lot of scholarship essays, and there are some things I've been kind of surprised by over time. One of the things that kind of surprised me last year was we had, I don't know, maybe 30 to 40 applications, and out of those, only a couple of them had written their essays in 5-paragraph essay format, even though we pound 5-paragraph essay format at the high school for ACTs and SATs and other kinds of things. And the couple people that did actually won scholarships last year. Their applications were just superior as a whole. So I kind of compiled a list of some of the things that I've noticed that I think might be beneficial to you as you think about applying for scholarships, both the Woodbury Chamber of Commerce scholarship as well as others. So for starters, my thing would be just to tell you to please apply. Sometimes we don't get a lot of scholarship applications, and when you apply, make sure you have a complete application. If we're missing some aspect of an application, like missing a transcript, we don't consider that scholarship application. So if a scholarship allows you to bring a sealed transcript with you and stick it in the envelope with your application, I would encourage you to do that, because when we send transcripts and the application separately, we don't come back and notify you if we don't receive your transcript and your application is incomplete. I'm sure some other scholarships do that. So make sure your scholarship is complete. If there are questions that you're asked to answer, please answer all of the questions. One of the questions we ask is what your financial need is. It is not the only factor we consider, and if you don't have a financial need, you should still apply. We award some scholarships for a financial need, and we award others for merit and activities and that kinds of thing. So answer that question, even if the way that you're answering that question is to say, you know, the college I'm going to costs $55,000 a year, and my parents expect me to pay half of it. That's at least some answer to our question about financial need. And be sure you make the deadline for the scholarship. Not making the deadline is, a reason for which you might not be considered. So then within that application, there are several things that we consider for ours. One is academics. That doesn't mean that we award scholarships only to students who have better than a 4.0 or who have straight A's. It's very definitely worth applying If you have really strong leadership and activities and you can write a good essay and those kind of things, but your grades aren't perfect. But it is one factor that we consider. And if you have some kind of a family crisis that affects what your grades are, let us know that kind of thing too. We do have the flexibility to take those kinds of things into account. In terms of essays, as I started out with, if you're writing an essay, write in the good formal writing styles that you've learned in your English classes. If I could tell you how many of our scholarship apps came in with one page-long paragraph or even more than a page-long paragraph, that's just not something you want to do. That doesn't put your best foot forward. So if you know how to write in 5-paragraph essay format and they've given you a question, take the opportunity to write a good essay and really put your best foot forward. As you're putting forth information on activities and your work experience and volunteering, all of those things really do count. Work experience, give us some idea of what you're doing and how much time you spend on it. Sports or fine arts activities that you're doing, any leadership skills that you have or places you're leading in clubs, as well as any volunteer experiences you have. And then one of the things that really sets some of the scholarship apps apart is how kids choose to present that information. So a couple little things that I notice where, people who are using, this sounds sort of stupid, but for people who are using, high quality grades of paper, like a bond paper or something like that, sometimes theirs looks presented a little more professionally. Some of them last year used really subtle use of color within their scholarship applications, just a fine line under their names or things. And those things just gave them a very professional quality in the way that they presented themselves. But then as you present the actual content of things, sometimes we'll get just a list. Like if a kid has been involved in a whole bunch of sports or a whole bunch of musicals or that kind of thing, they'll just present a whole list to us without any additional information about it. And someone else might take the time to say, I was on the tennis team and I was the captain of the tennis team and these are some of the things I did as a captain. Or they might, describe in more detail to us what they did, and they always make a point of bringing out places where they were a leader or where they gave a significant amount of time to an activity. So I would encourage you to take the time to give us a little bit better description. Similarly, as you're describing leadership qualities or leadership within organizations at the high school, make that stand out for us. Put it in bold, stick it in italics, put some white space around it so that we don't miss the fact that you were a leader in whatever that activity was. And again, give us some idea, what were some of the new or novel things that you did in that regard? For volunteering, one of the things I was really impressed with last year is that some students, again, just created a list, but other students made an effort to tell us how much time they give to certain activities. So people might put on their list, Feed My Starving Children, and that might mean that they've been to Feed My Starving Children once or once a year. But other people might put it on their list and it means that they go once a month. So some of the scholarship essays came in with a strong indication of how much time students had spent in each of their volunteer activities. So it was easy to see that somebody volunteers at the Woodwinds front desk twice a week all year long, and they've put in hundreds of hours at that activity. And that means more to us than a one-time visit to a Feed My Starving Children. Similarly, if you aren't as involved in activities at school because you're involved in fine arts, maybe you spend a lot of time with one of the Gitsy music organizations or something like that, or you spend a significant amount of time practicing, reflecting that in some way on your essay or on your application and in the time commitment you give to us can give us some idea of why you might not be doing some other kinds of things. So I guess kind of in summary, I would just say, take the time to apply, make sure you've got it all complete, and really approach this in a professional way like you're applying for a job, and really make the effort to put your best foot forward. If you have any other questions about what we might consider a good scholarship application or what you might do to do your very best job in applying, Feel free to ask the counseling office if they need to get back to some of us who are in some of the scholarship committees and ask us for more information on what we see and how we regard it. They could certainly do that, and we could get back to you.
Hi folks, thanks for joining me. I'm Ernie Pines. I'm the Community Ed Director for South Washington County School District. I'm going to ask to talk a little bit about completing applications for college scholarships. I know this is a big step in the lives of students and the lives of families, and it's an awfully important step. There are many different types of scholarships that are available. You can find out information online on the internet, from your school library, from your guidance counselors, from your place of employment. Many businesses and foundations also offer college scholarships. And this information is really valuable in trying to figure out whether or not you are eligible for a particular scholarship. In a few minutes, I'm going to be sharing with you some tips that may be helpful as you actually go through the process of application. If you're a junior, I'm telling you, it's none too early to start thinking about scholarships and the application process. Get yourself ready. I'm sure that you know that your grades are really important. Concentrating on your grades, on your studies, of paramount importance. But there are also some things that are very important in addition to grades. The scholarship providers may be very interested in knowing what you're like outside the classroom. Do you have any kind of community or school service? Are you involved in any sports, any clubs, any type of school leadership roles? All of these things are important and can help you get a leg up as you apply for a college scholarship. I suggest that you write a resume, that you really think hard about what your interests are, your talents, your passions, your dreams. Think about your life and your future aspirations. You know, I didn't mention that although my job in the school district is not looking at college scholarships, I had the opportunity for many years on the Woodbury Chamber of Commerce reviewing scholarships for Woodbury High School students. And I saw all different sorts of applications, many that were outstanding. But one that really comes to mind was in competition with some really formidable, some really high achieving students. The one that really caught my eye was one where the grades weren't quite as high as some of the competition. It was a girl whose mother was struggling with cancer. And this girl still maintained a good GPA in school, was active in school, but also had a lot of responsibilities at home for her mother and for her siblings. She was able to communicate this in a very clear way on her application form and letter. And this, I think, really moved all of us to see that she was a good student, but when you consider the kind of environment that she was in and what she needed to struggle with, she was really an outstanding applicant, and she was awarded a scholarship. So it's not just grades. Grades are important, but there are other life circumstances that you can roll into your scholarship application. Also, I would say that it's time that you'd be looking at who you might ask to be your references. Perhaps teachers, other adults that have been influential to you can be asked to write a letter of support that would also underscore some of your strengths, your talents, and your abilities. I'm going to talk now about what I consider to be the 10 most important tips that I can give to you in any type of scholarship application. The first one is read all of the scholarship requirements to ensure that you're eligible. It would seem to me to be a waste of time for you to spend your time in applying for a scholarship that you did not meet the requirements. So make sure that you are eligible before you do apply. Set aside time in advance, sufficient time, so that you can really put forth a quality effort with your application. This is probably the biggest pitfall that I have seen, is applications that really felt like they were rushed. And it really shows to the reviewers who are looking at the materials you provide. Number 3, research the 1 or 2 most important criteria for the scholarship. Often, scholarships are directed toward 1 or 2 main areas of concentration, and those are the areas that you may focus your skills and ability towards what it is that they're looking for in the application. 4, follow instructions carefully to ensure that you cover each of the required areas. A real pitfall is to miss an area that is a requirement for the rating of your application materials. Oftentimes, the competition is so keen that the scholarship applications are graded on a scale of 1 to 100, and if you're missing one of the really important requirements, you won't even make the grade for the scholarship. So make sure that it's completed. 5, put your best foot forward and use examples. But don't use too many examples. You need to stay focused. 1 or 2 examples of what's been part of your experience and where it is that you're heading, matched to a well-focused letter, is going to serve you better than many different examples. It's really important that you put your best foot forward, but it's also important that you're seen as being a credible candidate for the scholarship. 7, make your application easy to read. People who are reviewing applications often have many in front of them, and it's really difficult to go through a whole lot of applications, even more so when your application is not easy to read. So have great clarity. Along with that, number 8, be focused. Know what it is that you're trying to say and say it very clearly. Number 9, proofread your work and rewrite. It can't be just the first draft. Rewrite it, have your parents or others who you feel have decent writing skills review your application and make comment. Read it out loud, make sure that it makes sense. I'm not sure you can have too many drafts of what it is that you prepare. So have this looked at so that there are no mistakes and that it looks good. And then finally, whatever materials that you have, make sure that they look neat, crisp, clean, and presentable. They're going to be in competition with a lot of other materials. Yours will need to look particularly good. I was asked if I could give you some don'ts. I would say everything that I said would be an important consideration. The only large don't that I would say is don't sell yourself short on the time that you have. Set aside sufficient amount of time so that you can prepare a really well put together application. Well, I hope this information was helpful to you. For further information, you can see your guidance counselor. I also wanted to say that in our community education program, we have a course that's coming up in December on how to create brilliant college scholarship and application essay. It's in our catalog. You can also see this online at www.cecool.com. That's www.cecool.com.
I hope that the information you received regarding scholarship applications will help you in this process. Please remember to check with the counseling department to see what scholarships are available to you, and then make the most of the process by telling the scholarship committee all that you can about yourself, all of your positives. Thanks, and make this a successful project for you.